The story begins in a distant part of the galaxy where many alien worlds once lived in peace. For thousands of years, the stars were full of life. Trade ships moved between planets. Alien civilizations shared knowledge, technology, and culture. Massive space stations floated near bright suns. Great empires ruled thousands of systems. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was stable. Wars happened sometimes, but they were small and controlled. No species had ever threatened the entire galaxy. Then everything changed. One day, long-range sensors detected something strange near the edge of known space. At first, it looked like a storm of dark energy moving between the stars. The signal was weak and difficult to understand. Scientists believed it was just a natural event in deep space. But the storm kept moving, and it was getting closer. Soon, small border colonies began to disappear. Entire planets stopped sending signal. Communication stations went silent. At first, the galactic governments believed it was a technical failure. Rescue ships were sent to investigate. None of them returned. Then the first clear image arrived. A deep space probe sent one final transmission before it was destroyed. The video showed a fleet of massive ships moving through the darkness, but they did not look like normal ships. They looked alive. Their surfaces were made of black metal that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Long veins of glowing red energy ran across their hulls like blood moving through living skin. The ships moved slowly, but with terrible power. Behind them followed hundreds more, then thousands. No one had ever seen technology like this. No one had ever seen ships that large. Before the galaxy could react, the fleet reached its first target, a peaceful trade world called Rathara. Rathara had no large military. It was a center for science and trade. Millions of beings from different species lived there together. The attack lasted less than 2 hours. Orbital defense stations fired their weapons, but the demon ships ignored them. Energy beams cut through the planet's surface. Cities burned. Oceans boiled. The sky turned red. When the fleet left, the planet was no longer alive. It was a burning rock. That was the first time the galaxy heard their name, the Eternal Dominion. Soon after, a message spread across every communication network in the galaxy. It was not long. It was not complicated. The voice that delivered it was deep and cold. Submit or vanish. That was all they said. No negotiations, no explanations, no mercy. Panic spread across the stars. The first empire to respond was the powerful Velaran Union. Their navy controlled nearly 2,000 systems. They had one of the strongest fleets in the galaxy. Thousands of Velaran warships moved to intercept the demon fleet. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, nothing remained of the Velaran fleet. Not a single ship survived. The demons continued their advance. System after system fell. Ancient civilizations that had existed for tens of thousands of years were erased in a single day. Machine empires sent their automated war fleets. They were destroyed. Warrior species known for their brutal strength attacked with everything they had. They were destroyed. Entire planets burned in hours. Cities disappeared beneath firestorms. Even stars themselves were turned into weapons. Demon technology could force unstable suns to explode, destroying everything in the system. The galaxy had never faced an enemy like this. Every battle ended the same way: defeat. Slowly, the Eternal Dominion moved deeper into known space. Civilizations collapsed. Refugees fled across the stars. Fear spread faster than the demon fleets themselves. Many species began to believe the war was already lost. But during the chaos, something strange began to appear in the battle reports. Whenever demon fleets moved toward human territory, something changed. They stopped. They did not attack the human colonies. They did not move deeper into human space. They simply remained near the border, watching, waiting. At first, most commanders believed this was just coincidence. Humanity was not famous for military strength. Humans were a young species compared to the ancient empires. They were emotional, often divided by their own politics. Their fleets were respectable, but not legendary. Many aliens believed humans would be the first species to collapse when the demons reached them. But the demons never attacked. Weeks passed, then months. Demon fleets gathered near the edge of human space, but they did not cross the line. Scouts reported something strange. The demon ships seemed cautious. This confused everyone. Why would a species that had destroyed entire empires suddenly hesitate? No one understood. until one small alien patrol ship discovered something important. The patrol vessel belonged to a minor civilization that had been observing demon movements. While scanning near human space, their sensors detected a large demon fleet preparing for another invasion. The patrol ship moved closer to observe, but before they could leave the system, the demons detected them. Demon warships attacked immediately. The small patrol vessel had no chance of survival. But before its destruction, the crew managed to send one final message. The signal was weak and broken. Parts of the transmission were filled with static, but the most important words were clear. The captain's voice sounded terrified, almost whispering. Demon fleet changing course, they're retreating. Loud explosions echoed in the background. Then the captain spoke again. Unknown ships detected, human design, massive energy signatures. More static filled the signal. The final words came only seconds before the ship was destroyed. Human ships are coming. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, commanders replayed the message again and again. They did not understand what they were hearing. The demons had never retreated before, not once, but now they were running, and they were running from something. For the first time since the war began, the Eternal Dominion was afraid, and whatever had frightened them was human. Across the galaxy, the final message from the destroyed patrol ship spread quickly. Every military command center, every government council, and every surviving empire listened to the same words again and again. Human ships are coming. No one understood what it meant. For months, the demons had crushed every civilization that stood in their path. The Eternal Dominion had destroyed fleets that once controlled entire regions of space, and yet now, somehow, they were retreating. But from what? Most alien leaders did not believe the message at first. They assumed the patrol captain had been mistaken. Fear could make anyone imagine things that were not real. After all, humanity was not known for military dominance. Humans were a young species compared to most galactic powers. Their civilization had only recently begun to expand beyond their home system. They were curious explorers, talented engineers, and stubborn survivors. But warriors? Not really. Human fleets were respectable but not legendary. They had never conquered other empires. They rarely started wars. To many ancient civilizations, humanity looked weak, but the reports kept coming. More sensors near human territory detected strange movements. Demon fleets that had once advanced without fear were now holding position near the border of human space. They did not attack. They did not move forward. They waited. Days passed. Then something even stranger happened. The demon fleets began pulling back, slowly at first, then faster. Scouts reported that entire demon armadas were retreating deeper into conquered territory. It made no sense. The Eternal Dominion had never retreated from anything before, not once. Confusion spread across every surviving command center in the galaxy. Something was happening near human space, something powerful enough to frighten the demons. The question was simple. What? Inside one of the largest surviving alien military stations, commanders gathered to study the growing mystery. The station floated near the bright blue star of Lithara, far from the demon front lines. Dozens of alien species were present in the War Council chamber. Some were ancient beings whose civilizations had existed for tens of thousands of years. Others were survivors of worlds already destroyed by the demons. A massive holographic map of the galaxy floated in the center of the room. Red lights marked systems that had already fallen. Almost a third of the galaxy was already gone. The room was silent as the commander studied the new data. A sensor officer stepped forward. His voice was nervous. "We have confirmed the reports," he said. "The demon fleets near human territory are retreating." One of the older commanders spoke immediately. "Retreating from what?" The officer hesitated before answering. "We don't know." Another commander shook his head. "This must be a trap. The demons have never shown fear." The officer nodded. "Yes, that is what we believed too." He pressed a control panel. The holographic map zoomed in toward the regions surrounding human space. Several blinking markers appeared near the border. "These are demon fleets," the officer explained. "They have stopped their advance." Another commander leaned closer to the display. "What about the humans?" The officer zoomed the map again. A new set of signals appeared. Large signals. Very large. The room grew quiet. "These readings appeared 2 hours ago," the officer said. "They came from deep inside human territory." One of the commanders frowned. "What kind of ships are they?" The officer looked at the data again. That's the strange part. Our sensors cannot classify them. The room became even quieter. Explain, the commander demanded. The officer swallowed. The energy readings are extremely unusual. They are far stronger than normal human technology, stronger than most alien fleets as well. Another commander crossed his arms. That is impossible. The officer shook his head slowly. We thought so too. He pressed another command. New images appeared in the hologram, graining long-range sensor scans of enormous shapes moving through space. The shapes were dark and massive, larger than most known warships. Behind them followed dozens more, then hundreds. One of the commanders spoke softly. How many ships are there? The officer answered quietly. We are still counting. Current estimate, over 2,000. The room exploded with shocked voices. 2,000 warships was an enormous fleet, but what made the situation even more confusing was where they came from. Human space. The same human civilization many species believed was weak. Another commander spoke. This makes no sense. Humanity does not have fleets that large. They never built them. The officer nodded slowly. Yes, that is correct. The commander looked at him carefully. So where did they come from? The officer paused. Then he said something that made the entire room fall silent. We believe they were hidden. No one spoke for several seconds. Hidden? A fleet that size could not simply appear without being noticed, unless someone had spent years hiding it. Another commander spoke slowly. You're saying humans secretly built a war fleet large enough to challenge the demons and never told anyone? The officer looked back at the holographic display. Yes. And if our sensor readings are correct, he zoomed the image closer. The ships became clearer. Massive dark hulls, long glowing energy lines running across their surfaces, strange weapon structures unlike anything seen before. These ships are not normal human vessels. The officer's voice dropped. They appeared to be designed specifically for combat against the Eternal Dominion. The commanders stared at the images in silence. Slowly, a terrifying thought began to form. What if humanity had known about the demons long before anyone else? What if they had been preparing for this war the entire time? Before anyone could answer that question, the station's alarm suddenly sounded. A communications officer rushed into the chamber. We are receiving a new signal. Source, human territory. The room instantly went quiet. The signal appeared on the central display. A calm human voice spoke across the stars. This is Human Defense Command. Attention to all remaining galactic forces. A short pause followed. Then the voice continued. The demon advance has been halted. More silence filled the chamber. Then the human voice delivered one final message. Our fleets are now entering combat range. Stand by. Outside the station's massive windows, the distant stars flickered slightly. Sensors across the galaxy detected the same thing at the same moment. Thousands of enormous human warships were emerging from warp space, and they were heading directly toward the demon fleets. For the first time since the war began, humanity had entered the battlefield. Across the galaxy, thousands of sensors suddenly came alive. Long-range scanners began detecting powerful warp signals spreading through space. The signals were enormous, far stronger than any fleet movement seen during the war. Alien commanders quickly realized something important. The human fleets had not just moved, they had jumped. Thousands of ships were arriving at the same time across many different star systems. For the first time since the Eternal Dominion began its conquest, someone was moving fast enough to match the demons. Inside the War Council station near the blue star of Lithara, the commanders watched the holographic map change. New blue lights appeared across the display. Each light represented a human fleet. The red lights represented demon fleets. And now, the blue lights were moving toward them. A young alien officer stared at the screen in disbelief. There are too many of them, another officer asked quietly. Are we sure those are human ships? The sensor officer nodded slowly. Yes. The signal codes match human military transmissions. One of the older commanders leaned forward. How many fleets? The answer came seconds later. 32 confirmed fleets. The room became completely silent. 32 fleets. That was far more than anyone believed humanity possessed. And the energy signatures of those ships were unlike anything recorded before. Each fleet moved with perfect precision. They did not scatter. They did not hesitate. They moved like a single mind guiding them. At the center of every fleet was a massive command vessel. These ships were enormous. Some were larger than small moons. Their hulls were dark silver, covered with glowing blue energy lines that pulsed slowly like a living heartbeat. Along their sides were weapon systems that did not resemble lasers or missiles. They looked like rings of energy wrapped around the ship itself. One alien commander spoke softly. "What kind of weapons are those?" No one answered, because no one knew. Meanwhile, far closer to the demon front lines, the Eternal Dominion fleets had already noticed the human arrival. Demon warships had been advancing without fear for months. They had destroyed every enemy fleet they encountered. But now their scanners were detecting something unexpected. Large unknown fleets were approaching from multiple directions. One demon commander studied the data carefully. His species had ruled wars for thousands of years. Very few things surprised him, but this situation was unusual. "These signals are human," one demon officer reported. The commander stared at the display. "Impossible. Humans are weak." The officer responded carefully. "These ships are not weak." The commander narrowed his eyes. "How many?" the officer answered. "Thousands." For the first time, the demon command bridge became quiet. Outside the massive viewing window, distant stars flickered as space twisted and bent. Human ships were beginning to appear, one by one, then dozens, then hundreds. Dark shapes emerged from warp space like shadows stepping out of another dimension. The human ships were silent. No battle signals, no threats. They simply arrived. The demon fleet quickly formed a defensive formation. Thousands of living warships aligned their weapons toward the newcomers. Black metal hulls glowed with deep red energy. Their massive weapons charged slowly. Normally, this moment would end the same way it always did. The demons would attack. The enemy would be destroyed. But something felt different. The human fleet did not show fear. Their ships did not scatter. They did not even move. They simply held position in the darkness of space. A single human vessel slowly moved forward. It was larger than the others, much larger, nearly 300 kilometers long. Its surface was covered with powerful energy shields that shimmered like blue glass. The demon commander watched carefully. "What ship is that?" The sensors tried to scan the vessel, but something strange happened. Every scan returned the same message. Signal blocked. The ship's identity remained hidden. Then suddenly, a communication signal appeared. It came from the large human command vessel. The message was transmitted on every known communication frequency in the region. Both demons and alien observers heard it at the same time. The voice was calm, controlled, human. "This is the human flagship, Aegis Prime." A brief pause followed. Then the voice continued. "You have entered restricted human war territory." The demon commander laughed quietly. He had heard many threats before. None had mattered. "You are outnumbered, human," he said as he opened a response channel. "You will be destroyed like all others." But the human voice did not change. It remained calm, cold, confident. "No." Another pause followed. Then the final words came. "You will be removed." For a moment, nothing happened. The demon commander gave the attack order. Thousands of demon weapons fired at once. Red beams of destructive energy raced across space toward the human fleet. Alien observers across the galaxy watched the battle through long-range sensors. They expected the same outcome as always. The demons would win. But the moment the weapons reached the human ships, something impossible happened. The beams simply vanished, not deflected, not absorbed. They disappeared, as if space itself had swallowed them. The demon commander stared in disbelief. What happened? The answer came seconds later. The human fleet fired, but their weapons were not lasers, not missiles, not plasma cannons. Large rings along the human ships began to glow bright blue. Energy gathered inside them like miniature stars forming inside metal circles. Then the rings released their power. Massive beams of distorted space shot across the battlefield. They did not explode when they hit demon ships. Instead, the ships simply vanished. Entire warships disappeared instantly. No debris, no wreckage, just empty space where they once existed. One demon officer shouted in panic. "They're removing the ships from reality." More human weapons fired. Another line of demon warships vanished. Then another, then another. The battlefield quickly turned into chaos. The once unstoppable demon fleet was losing ships faster than ever before. and the human ships were barely moving. Far away, watching from hidden observation stations, alien commanders struggled to understand what they were seeing. For months, the demons had been unstoppable. Now they were being destroyed. Easily, quietly, efficiently. One alien commander whispered the words that everyone else was thinking. Humanity has been hiding its true power. Another commander looked at the holographic display showing hundreds of demon ships disappearing. No, he said slowly. They were not hiding. They were preparing. And now the galaxy was finally seeing what humanity had built in secret. The human elite forces had entered the war, and the demons were not ready for them. Across the galaxy, the battle reports began spreading like wildfire. Every surviving civilization watched the same impossible recordings. Demon warships disappearing, human fleets moving without fear, the Eternal Dominion losing. Inside hidden observation stations, alien commanders replayed the footage again and again. For months, the demons had crushed every enemy fleet. Entire armadas had vanished in minutes. But now the situation had changed. Human ships were cutting through demon fleets with terrifying precision. The alien commanders did not understand how. One of the oldest war leaders in the galaxy, a tall gray-skinned being from the Ralnari Empire, spoke slowly. This is not luck. This is preparation. Around the chamber, dozens of other commanders looked toward him. What do you mean? One of them asked. The Ralnari leader studied the battle data floating in the hologram. Look at the movement patterns of the human fleet, he said. They know exactly where to strike. They are targeting command ships first, then weapon carriers, then shield generators, then shield generators. The commander paused. This is not the behavior of a species fighting a new enemy. Another officer finished the thought. This is the behavior of someone who already knows their enemy. The room fell silent. Far away from the council chamber, the battle continued. Near the border of human space, the massive human fleet moved slowly forward. Thousands of warships formed a wide wall of dark metal and blue light. At the center of the formation, the giant flagship Aegis Prime remained steady and calm. Inside the command bridge of the Aegis Prime, the human officers watched the battlefield with focused attention. Unlike the chaos inside the demon fleet, the human command room was quiet. No one shouted. No one panicked. Every officer worked calmly at their station. The fleet commander, Admiral Elena Voss, stood at the center of the bridge. Her eyes were fixed on the tactical display. Hundreds of red markers showed demon ships still active in the battle zone. Blue markers showed the human fleet surrounding them. A young officer spoke from the sensor station. Enemy fleet strength reduced by 28%. Another officer added, Demon command ship attempting retreat. Admiral Voss nodded slowly. They're adapting faster than predicted. She turned toward another officer. Deploy the second wave. The officer responded immediately. Yes, Admiral. Outside the flagship, several smaller human vessels moved forward from the main formation. These ships looked different from the others. They were smaller, faster, and covered with advanced stealth systems. Their hulls carried special boarding equipment and precision strike weapons. These were ships belonging to the human elite strike units. While the main fleet destroyed enemy ships from distance, these units had a different mission. They attacked from the inside. Moments later, the strike ships accelerated toward the demon fleet. Their engines burned bright blue as they slipped through gaps in the battlefield. Inside the demon command ship, panic was spreading. The demon commanders had never faced an enemy like this before. Their ships were powerful. Their weapons had destroyed entire empires, but the humans were fighting in ways they did not expect. Every time the demons tried to regroup, human ships appeared exactly where they were needed. It was as if the humans already knew every move the demons would make. A demon officer shouted from the sensor station, "Unknown human vessels approaching." The commander growled, "Destroy them." But before the demon weapons could fire, the human strike ships vanished from sensors. They disappeared from the battlefield. Seconds later, alarms began screaming inside the demon command ship. Boarding alert. Multiple hull breaches. Human soldiers had entered the ship. The demons were powerful warriors, stronger than most species in the galaxy. But the humans who entered the ship were not normal soldiers. They were members of the human elite forces. Each one wore advanced combat armor covered in energy shields. Their weapons fired concentrated energy pulses designed to disable demon technology. They moved quickly through the dark corridors of the demon vessel. Precise, focused, unstoppable. Within minutes, the demon command center lost control of its weapons, then its engines, then its communication systems. The massive ship drifted helplessly in space. Back on the Aegis Prime, the sensor officer reported calmly. Enemy command ship disabled. Admiral Voss nodded. Good. But she did not smile. She knew this battle was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, alien commanders continued to watch the battle in shock. One of them finally asked the question everyone was thinking. How could humans build such a powerful military without anyone noticing? An intelligence officer slowly brought up old records on the display. Because humanity never showed it. For the past 200 years, humans avoided large wars. They focused on research, exploration, and engineering. The officer paused before continuing. But during that same time, several large human shipyards disappeared from public records. The commanders leaned forward. What happened to them? The officer looked at the classified data. They were moved deep into human territory, hidden behind restricted systems. The officer zoomed the display outward. Dozens of hidden locations appeared on the map. Secret shipyards, hidden research stations, training worlds. All of this was built in secret, the officer said quietly, for one purpose. The commanders already knew the answer, to fight the demons. Because long before the Eternal Dominion arrived, human scientists had discovered something terrifying. Ancient signals from outside the galaxy, signals warning about a species that destroyed entire civilizations, the demons. Humanity had believed the warning. While the rest of the galaxy lived in peace, humans quietly prepared. They built new weapons, new fleets, new soldiers. They trained for a war no one else believed was coming. And now that war had finally arrived, back on the battlefield, the demon fleet was collapsing. More human ships were arriving every minute. More demon vessels were disappearing. For the first time in thousands of years, the Eternal Dominion was losing control of a battle, and the humans were only just beginning. The battle near human space had already lasted longer than any fight the demons had faced before. Normally, the Eternal Dominion destroyed its enemies within minutes, but now the battle had been raging for hours, and the situation was getting worse for them. Across the battlefield, broken demon ships drifted silently through space. Some were cut in half by human weapons. Others had simply disappeared, leaving empty gaps where massive warships once existed. Human fleets continued moving forward slowly and carefully. They did not rush. They did not celebrate. They simply advanced. Precise, calm, unstoppable. Inside the human flagship, Aegis Prime, Admiral Elena Voss watched the battle unfold on the giant tactical screen. The display showed the remaining demon ships trying to regroup. Red symbols moved quickly as demon commanders attempted to form a new defensive formation. Admiral Voss crossed her arms and studied the data. Enemy fleet status. A sensor officer answered immediately. Enemy strength reduced by 46%. Another officer spoke. Multiple demon ships attempting retreat. Admiral Voss nodded slowly. They're realizing what they're facing. The communication officer turned toward her. Should we pursue retreating targets? The admiral thought for a moment. Then she gave a calm answer. No. The officer looked surprised. No pursuit, Admiral. Voss shook her head. Not yet. We want them to run. The officers on the bridge exchanged curious looks, but no one questioned the order. Outside the flagship, the massive human fleet continued its slow advance. Meanwhile, inside the demon command vessel, chaos was spreading. The demon commanders had never experienced something like this before. For centuries, the Eternal Dominion had been the most feared force in the universe. Entire galaxies had fallen before their fleets. No enemy had ever pushed them back. But now human ships were destroying them faster than they could respond. One demon officer shouted in frustration. Another carrier group lost. Another voice yelled from the sensor station. Human strike ships inside our formation. The demon commander slammed his clawed hand against the control console. How are they doing this? Their ships were powerful. Their weapons were devastating. But the humans were fighting differently. They were faster, smarter. Every human attack was perfectly timed. It was like fighting an enemy that already knew every move. The demon commander growled angrily. Deploy the devourers. The bridge suddenly became quiet. Even the other demon officers hesitated. The Devourers were the Dominion's most dangerous living weapons. They were enormous bioengineered warships. Each one was nearly the size of a small moon. Their hulls were covered with dark organic armor that could regenerate after damage. Inside their bodies were massive cannons capable of destroying entire fleets. Normally, the demons used these weapons only when they wanted to completely erase a civilization. But now they were desperate. Minutes later, several enormous shapes emerged from the back of the demon formation. Alien observers watching the battle gasped when the sensor images appeared. "These things are enormous," one alien commander whispered. The Devourers moved slowly forward. Their massive bodies blocked the light of nearby stars. Dark red energy gathered around their mouths as their weapons began charging. Inside the Aegis Prime, the human sensor officer spoke quickly. "New enemy vessels detected." Admiral Voss looked at the display. Several giant red signals appeared on the map. She studied them carefully. "Devourer-class biological warships," the officer reported. "Energy output extremely high." Another officer added, "Estimated firepower capable of destroying multiple fleets." The room remained calm. Admiral Voss did not look worried. Instead, she nodded slowly. "So they finally decided to bring their monsters." She turned toward the weapons officer. "Prepare Titan array." The officer immediately responded, "Yes, Admiral." Across the human fleet, several of the largest ships began to move forward. These vessels were even larger than the rest of the fleet. Their hulls were covered with massive circular energy structures. Each structure looked like a giant ring surrounding the ship. The rings slowly began to glow with bright blue light. Energy gathered inside them. More and more power flowed into the rings. Soon they looked like small stars forming in space. Alien observers watched the readings rise. "This energy level is impossible," one scientist said quietly. "They're generating more power than a planetary reactor." Back on the battlefield, the demon devourers fired their weapons. Huge streams of dark energy shot across space toward the human fleet. The attacks were powerful enough to destroy entire planets. But just before the beams reached the human ships, the glowing rings activated. The rings released a massive wave of distorted space. The demon attacks bent and twisted, then they vanished. The devourers fired again and again, but every attack was neutralized. Then the human ships fired. The Titan array weapons released beams of pure gravitational force. The beams struck the devourers directly. At first, nothing happened. Then the giant creatures began to collapse. Their massive bodies twisted under impossible pressure. Organic armor cracked and shattered. Internal structures failed. Within seconds, the enormous biowarships broke apart like fragile glass. 3 devourers were destroyed instantly. The rest attempted to retreat. Across the battlefield, demon ships began pulling away. The once unstoppable Eternal Dominion fleet was now retreating. Alien commanders watching the battle could hardly believe it. "The demons are running," one officer whispered. For the first time since the war began, the Eternal Dominion was losing, and the humans were still advancing. Inside the Aegis Prime, Admiral Voss watched the retreating enemy fleet. She finally gave the order. "Now," the officers looked up. "Begin pursuit." Hundreds of human warships accelerated forward. Blue engine trails burned brightly as the fleet chased the retreating demons. The war had finally changed. The hunters had become the hunted, and the demons were beginning to understand a terrifying truth. Humanity was not just defending the galaxy. Humanity was stronger than them. The demon fleet was running. Across the battlefield, the once unstoppable warships of the Eternal Dominion were retreating deeper into space. For the first time in the history of the war, the demons were not advancing, they were escaping. Behind them, the human fleets moved forward with cold precision. Hundreds of dark human warships accelerated through the battlefield. Their blue engines burned like small stars in the darkness. They did not rush blindly. They moved carefully, surrounding the retreating demon ships. Every movement was controlled. Every attack was planned. Inside the flagship Aegis Prime, Admiral Elena Voss watched the battle calmly. The tactical display showed the enemy fleet scattering. Red markers, representing demon ships, were spreading across the map as they tried to escape in different directions. A young human officer spoke from the sensor station, "Enemy fleet attempting multiple warp jumps." Another officer quickly replied, "Human interdiction fields active." Moments later, the sensor officer spoke again. Enemy warp drives failing. Outside the ship, invisible human technology spread across the region. Massive gravitational fields twisted space itself, blocking the demon ships from escaping into faster-than-light travel. The demons were trapped. For the first time in the war, the Eternal Dominion had nowhere to run. Admiral Voss finally spoke. Open a channel to the demon command ship. The communication officer looked surprised. You want to talk to them? Yes. The officer activated the transmission. A moment later, the screen in front of the bridge flickered. The face of the demon fleet commander appeared. His dark skin was covered with glowing red patterns, and his eyes burned with anger. Behind him, alarms echoed across his command bridge. His once confident expression was now filled with frustration. You dare contact us? The demon commander growled. Admiral Voss stood calmly. Yes. You are defeated, she said simply. The demon commander laughed bitterly. You think this is victory? This is only one fleet. There are thousands more. The Eternal Dominion has destroyed galaxies before your species learned to fly. The human officers on the bridge remained silent. Admiral Voss nodded slowly. Yes, we know. The demon commander paused. You know? The admiral stepped closer to the screen. Your species has destroyed many civilizations. You have consumed entire star systems. You believe yourselves to be unstoppable. She paused. But you are not the first threat humanity has studied. The demon commander narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Admiral Voss looked toward the star-filled darkness outside the ship's window. For nearly 300 years, humanity has been watching signals from deep space. Ancient signals. Signals older than most civilizations in this galaxy. The demon commander remained silent. They were warnings, the admiral continued. Warnings left by a civilization that no longer exists. They described a species that destroys entire galaxies. The demon commander slowly understood. You mean us? Admiral Voss nodded. Yes. The demon commander laughed again. So you built a fleet to fight us? Impressive. But your preparation will not save you. Our full empire will arrive eventually. When that happens, your species will disappear like all the others. The admiral looked back at the screen. Her expression did not change. You misunderstand something, she said quietly. The demon commander frowned. What? Admiral Voss spoke calmly. You are not the enemy humanity prepared for. For a moment, the demon commander said nothing. Then his expression changed. What do you mean? The admiral turned slightly and pointed toward the distant stars beyond the battlefield. Your species destroys galaxies, but something else destroys entire universes. The demon commander's eyes widened slightly. You're lying. The admiral shook her head. No. She activated another display. A massive hologram appeared on the screen. It showed a region far beyond the galaxy. Deep space, dark, empty. Then strange signals appeared on the map. Massive moving shapes, thousands of them. Each one far larger than any demon warship. The demon commander stared at the display in shock. What are those? Admiral Voss answered quietly. That is the real reason humanity built the elite forces. She stepped closer to the screen again. Your species is dangerous, but you are only the first wave. The demon commander suddenly looked less confident. That is impossible. Nothing can destroy the Eternal Dominion. The admiral looked at him with calm certainty. They already have. She zoomed the hologram outward. Entire sections of space were dark, dead, no stars, no planets, only empty darkness. Those regions used to contain galaxies, she explained. They were consumed. The demon commander whispered one word. Consumed. The admiral nodded. The species coming from that direction does not conquer planets. They do not build empires. They do not negotiate. They simply erase existence. Silence filled both command bridges. For the first time since the war began, the demon commander looked uncertain. Why tell me this? He asked quietly. Admiral Voss answered immediately. Because your fleet is defeated, and because humanity does not want to fight two wars. The demon commander looked confused. You expect us to join you? The admiral shook her head. No, I expect you to warn your empire. She paused before speaking again. Because if your people continue this war, they will weaken the only species in this galaxy that has prepared for what is coming. The demon commander stared at her for several seconds. Then the connection ended. Inside the human command bridge, the officers remained silent. Finally, the communication officer spoke. Do you think he believed you? Admiral Voss looked back toward the distant stars. It doesn't matter. The officer frowned. Why? The admiral answered calmly. Because they will see it soon enough. Far beyond the galaxy, something enormous was moving through the darkness. And humanity had been preparing for that moment for centuries. The war with the demons had only been the beginning. The real battle for the universe had not even started yet.